Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we are so glad to have you here. Today, we introduce you to a mayor making history as the youngest to be elected in Edison. That's straight ahead. Also on the show, we're going to be talking about legislation that some say discriminates against some contractors and small businesses, as well as other issues being debated in Trenton. First, though, we are happy to have Sam Joshi. He is the newly elected mayor of Edison, who is the youngest the town has ever seen. But he says don't let his youthfulness trick you. He's been involved at the local level ever since he was 14 years old. So, Mayor, it's so good to see you here.
Nice seeing you as well, Laura.
All right,
Thanks
now
for
we don't want to be
having me on.
ageist. We don't want to be ageist or anything, but it is very exciting.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited. I was born and raised in Edison my whole life. I went through the entire public school system here. I love this town, and I chose to live here because I wanted to make an impact on it. The way that I got started, I actually started when I was 14 years old, and it was my first internship under then Mayor Spadoro. And as soon as I got to see, I got to see the profound impact that government can have on its people, and particularly local government. Local government, your local council members, your mayor, they can make an impact on the quality of life of residents quicker, faster, more efficiently than any other level of government. And that's really what opened my eyes up when I was 14. Ever since then, I just wanted to continue staying involved, and the more involved I got, eventually getting put on boards, commissions. I was an employee at one point. That was fascinating to me, and I wanted to be able to make the difference that as much of a difference as I possibly can.
You bring up a great point about the old saying, all politics is local. Yet when something happens, I can't tell you how many people have come to me, you got to let the governor know. Somebody's got to let this person, that person. And, or even when it comes to news coverage, people will say, oh, you've got to get national coverage. No, not necessarily, because what is happening in your backyard, that's really where you affect change. Yet people don't always realize this. So you're 14 years old and you're getting an interest in politics. Was there any time where you were just thinking, oh my gosh, this is just so much red tape, not for me, no thank you?
No, not once, because I just saw it as there's a reason behind everything, and we just have to make sure that the process that we have in place can be as efficient as possible. If we do that, then government is truly working for its people, and you can see the results because the residents will be happier and their quality of life is improved.
So let's talk about some of the issues that are confronting you right off the bat. Now that you have the job, what are you looking at?
So, the first week was awesome. It was really fun. It was very exciting. It was everything that I had envisioned as well. We were hit with a snowstorm. We dealt with that in a very strategical, organized way, and I'm proud of the way that it was executed. I spoke to the president of JFK Hospital, who informed me that they were being bogged down in their ER just because the amount of people that were going there. And so one thing that we discussed was opening up, testing facilities around Edison, authorizing more private facilities, as well as utilizing our own health center to make sure that we can alleviate the stress and burden that's being put down on JFK. So we did exactly that. That was the first week. Snowstorm, COVID, and we also got into motion some of the other projects that we're working on, such as a community center, a senior center. These are the things that I promised during my campaign, and my administration is working on exactly that.
It's very difficult in these times because we are in the middle of a global pandemic. It's winter in New Jersey, so there's going to be unpredictable weather. How are you able, or how are you planning on ensuring that the business of government continues to move on when you do have these huge global issues that you can't ignore?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. a laundry list of items that we have to take on out at once. And the way we most efficiently go about it is simply through having an effective communication within the administration. And I've designated, various individuals within the administration to make sure that at all points and all times, we are constantly working on different things. That includes public works. That includes our health department. There's never a point where in local government, especially from what I see, we're not sitting. There's no point. It just can't happen because things are always moving. And we're working as tirelessly as we possibly can.
So let's talk about some of your initiatives. You're out on the campaign trail. Obviously, you're having to talk a lot about the pandemic. But what are some of the other things that people were talking about? Some of the things that you see, because you said, you've lived here your whole life, that you say, you know what, we can do better, or you know what, that isn't working right, or I want to see some change. Can you talk about those initiatives that you would like to take on and accomplish?
So one of the biggest points throughout my campaign last year was executing and developing a new master plan that is more fitting for the decades to come. And that's what we've been laying the foundation for. We want to go after blighted properties in Edison. I want to make sure that Edison is a community that, you are proud of living in. I have to make sure that when someone wakes up, they feel like they're in a very good, clean community. This is, this directly impacts your quality of life. When I sat down with my directors, my administration sat down with all the directors and various department heads, I made it very clear that blighted properties are not going to be tolerated in Edison, particularly Route 27. When we go through Route 27, we counted a few dozen properties that were blighted, and we want to make sure that we move on them as quickly as possible. We have to make sure that Edison has a beautification effort that is fitting to the master plan, and that's really what
It's a very diverse community. You have a lot of residential small communities. You have businesses that are there. So when you're talking about blighted communities, is that more people who've moved out of the neighborhood, or are you concerned that businesses are moving out of New Jersey because there's an affordability issue as far as doing business in New Jersey? So, when you talk about blighted, is it blighted homes or businesses, or a little bit of everything?
Good question. Particularly commercial land owners or business owners that are not maintaining their properties in a way that is standard to code. And we've seen a lot of properties like that where it's just not maintained. There's vacated properties, and it makes a town or certain portions of the town look run down. And that's just not something that we're going to tolerate in this administration. And along the same lines of that, because this all falls under the master plan, we're also working on, a holistic approach to, one, bringing in a township planner, which we have not had in decades. We also want to make sure that this plan ensures that there is no overdevelopment either. We have to make sure that it is managed growth. So even if we have residential homes coming into town, or people want to build residential homes, it has to be done in a way that is manageable for Edison Township, making sure that it's not putting a burden on our school systems. Those are the type of things that we're looking for. We want to make sure that warehouses are no more warehouses are being built alongside residential neighborhoods. I stand absolutely firm on that, and we're going to do whatever we possibly can to make sure that warehouses are not being built alongside residential neighborhoods.
All right. So, Mayor, when you're talking about redevelopment and you have a property that might be abandoned, and lo and behold, somebody comes in and they say, okay, well, I'll develop it, but it may not be what the community wants. Like, I live in West Amwell, and there's a Dollar General that's supposedly coming in, and people don't have a problem with Dollar General, but they don't want it in their backyard. So are you running into some of those issues yourself?
We are. We're we're running into that issues, but I'm standing firmly with the residents of this community, which are just tired of warehouses being built alongside residential neighborhoods. I'm very firm with my administration. We are going to do everything we possibly can to ensure that warehouses are not built alongside residential neighborhoods. That's actually the definition, as I would call it, of excessive development, excessive and unnecessary development. Because of our geographic location, I just mentioned, we have a strategic business advantage. Geographically, we have Route 1, 440, Turnpike, Parkway, all roads lead to Edison. Businesses, people, residents, people want to be in Edison because we are near the center point of Philadelphia and New York City. It's very convenient. So we're not, we quite frankly, we don't need warehouses to come to Edison to attract ratables. There are so many different things that we can do, and that's really what we're going to work on with the community as a whole, discussing, how we can build an Edison that we are proud of for the next 2 decades.
Well, when I worked in Edison, one of my favorite things when I would go up there is every single restaurant, no matter what you want, it's all right there.
Yes.
And so that's made up of a lot of mom and pop businesses, individual businesses that you just can't get elsewhere. So what about the small business community? And again, it is so culturally diverse there. I'm telling you, I couldn't pick a favorite restaurant because yes, I love them all. But what about those small businesses and a lot of people who have immigrated to this country and specifically moved to Edison and set up a business there that you cannot find anyplace else in this country?
Yeah, no, you touch on a very awesome point where not just because of our geographic location, but also because of our diversity, we have more restaurants and restaurants, eateries than, quite frankly, most places in New Jersey. You name a cuisine, you name a background from around the world, and we have it right here in Edison. It's something that makes it very unique. People from all over New Jersey, they typically, it's either New York City or Edison. That's really where they go to in terms of what their options are if they want to have food from different cultures. And I love it. It's very exciting. It's actually what brings a good portion of the community together too.
So as somebody who is the youngest mayor of Edison, are you getting advice from some of the older generations? Are you listening a lot to the younger people? Like what are people saying to you since you have this now distinct, this, I don't want to call it label, but the youngest mayor of Edison?
It's interesting you say that because yes, I am the youngest mayor in Edison. However, I've been part of Edison's government and political system for so long, literally since I was 14 years old. So my first, as soon as I took office, I made my rounds around every department, post-transition meetings. And there, in every single department that we went to, there's one person that has known me since my teenage years. And there was one person who actually said, Sam, you used to be my intern and now you're the mayor. And that happens quite frequently. But I wouldn't, I think of it in a different manner because
a wise soul, perhaps, an experienced soul, despite the youthful years.
Yeah,
we have to be very careful how we say things.
Yeah, it's the combination of experience. I've served on the council before too. I was also 4 years on the council, 2 years on the zoning board, 4 years on the Fair and Housing Authority, and so because of that, and I've worked with 4 different administrations. I've surrounded myself with a team that I believe is going to execute the vision of not just now, but the future. I have a administration that I'm quite frankly very proud of right now. There's so many little things that we are adjusting in Town Hall, and people within Town Hall are also excited about it because they're seeing the change. Just on day one, they're seeing the change of things that we have in motion. That's really what this administration is about.
All right. Well, Mayor, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and we hope to have you back again. And congratulations and Happy New Year to you.
Laura, thanks so much for having me on.
Samantha DeAlmeida is the president of the Mount Laurel-based Associated Builders and Contractors of New Jersey. Now, she says the outgoing legislature used lame duck session to push through policy that actually hurts contractors and small businesses that are not members of the unions, and we welcome her to the show. Samantha, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. So first, let me understand, and the audience understand, who exactly it is that you represent. It's the Association of Builders and Contractors of New Jersey. Who are these people?
Sure. Thanks for having me. We are a national association that has several different chapters throughout the country, 69 to be specific. New Jersey is the largest. We have about 1,100 members. And what we do is we represent open shop construction. Also known as merit shop. We allow incoming recruits to the construction industry and existing employees to elect whether or not they join a union, rather than making it a requirement for employment as with a closed shop.
Right. So there's legislation, lame duck season. You know, we're ending one legislative season, beginning a new one. Pretty soon, Governor Murphy's going to be sworn in for a second term. And there's talk in Trenton, there's legislation being put forth that you are very concerned about as it pertains to those people who you represent, those who are not in unions. So what's the concern?
Sure. So there's a piece of legislation pending that will threaten ABC's and other merit shop contractors' ability to do public work.
Can I stop you right there so we know ABC
Sure.
stands for?
Associated Builders and Contractors of New Jersey. So we have an apprenticeship program that was developed in 2019 after another law was passed that required any contractor that was doing public work to be a part of an apprenticeship program. This was not something that ABC was pushing for at the time, but quietly behind the scenes, we were working to develop the apprenticeship program, and it happened that they passed this law. So what we did is we went to the Department of Labor and we asked for a couple things. We let them know that we were developing this apprenticeship program, but we also asked for equal playing ground that the unions have in terms of, if you're a small shop, say mom and pop, 5 employees, and you can't house an apprentice, you can pay into a apprenticeship education trust fund and gain compliance that way. The unions do this by being signatory and then having compliance through the unions. We were successful in getting that into regulations, and it's been working out very well. Our apprenticeship program has 13 trades and has been very successful thus far, but it continues to grow. So this legislation is threatening this program.
How exactly would it threaten it? We know that the unions are pretty powerful in New Jersey. They exist. You have a building, you have workers unions, you have teachers unions. So talk a little bit about who it is that you're going up against.
Our adversaries on this issue is with the construction building trades, not with any of the other unions. Quite frankly, we are kind of the Goliath in this situation. 78% of the construction industry in New Jersey is merit shop. So unions are just a small portion of the workforce here in New Jersey, and that's where the favoritism is being given. What this legislation does is there's two types of states currently. New Jersey is a state that our apprenticeship programs are overseen by the federal government. And there's other states like New York and Pennsylvania that they're called SAC states, State Apprenticeship Council states, where they have an internal body that's appointed by the governor that oversees their apprenticeship councils. As you can imagine, those become kind of politically motivated, and you have folks that are put on there that outnumber the others, and whether it's blue or red, it always turns into a food fight. The USDOL model seems to be working very well in the states where it is. It's kind of an even split. But what this does is it creates another layer. As I mentioned, USDOL is who we report to. They oversee our program. They can audit us at any time. It's very scrupulous of the details that we have to keep. This legislation would allow the state to come in and audit us as well. They cannot deregister our program as they don't have that type of oversight, but they could deregister the contractors that belong to our program. So it really hurts the individuals.
Kind of looking in, you think, well, this kind of makes sense as far as if you merit-based, you know, you do a good job, you meet the requirements, therefore that's how you work. What is the concern that perhaps is on the other side with the labor unions, maybe younger people trying to get their foot in the door? They may not have all the experience, but they're trying to. Can you help rectify that? Because what you're saying makes sense. Well, merit-based, if you can do it, well, then that's great. But then I can kind of also see, well, gosh, if you have people who have been doing this for 20, 30, throughout generations, then if you have younger people trying to get in, so how do you rectify that?
Absolutely. So I have, ABC has been branded, especially in New Jersey, unfortunately, as being anti-union, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Our membership does have some union companies that participate with merit shops. I come from a long line, 2 generations of grandfathers that were construction, labor union related, and that's how we made our families living. So I have nothing against these people. If you choose to go union, good for you. I have friends, family that are still involved in the building trades. All I'm doing is fighting for those that choose not to be, have left the unions, have not been able to historically get into the unions. And on the other side, the argument that they're making is that their programs are superior to ours. It's not true. I could tell you this, that their programs have been around for 100 years. We've had 2, much of that being a pandemic. So while we're still getting our feet under us a bit, we've done everything to comply with the law, and our program continues to grow.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the pandemic. Not that we're ever glad to talk about a pandemic, but it is a real issue in businesses, struggling to keep afloat, people who may be trying to build, to do renovations, or perhaps even people looking, just to expand what they have, perhaps even, a business from their home. So you're concerned that legislation that's pending actually discriminates against small business owners, minority-owned business owners. Can you talk a little bit to how it does?
Sure. So from the African American Chamber of Commerce nationally, statistics have come out that 98% of African American and minority-owned businesses are merit shop in the construction realm. So you only have a very small percentage of minorities that are working on the union side. Historically, the building trades have not been kind to minorities. And if you were to do a quick search of that, I'm sure you would find a ton of information. We're trying to change the culture around that here in New Jersey specifically. Just about every single one of my members is hiring. And we don't care what you look like, whether you are looking for a career in the inner city, are you looking for a career in a rural area? Are you coming back into the workforce, from a second chance program, whatever it may be? I'm happy to help you, get you trained, and work with you. I can't speak to what the unions are doing on that side, but that's kind of what we're working on. I'm also very concerned about the implication of this legislation on the taxpayer. Union labor is very expensive, more expensive, we've seen, than the merit shop. And quite frankly, you're going to limit the pool of contractors that will be able to do public work if this legislation is passed. In 2019, before that law was passed, there was about 12,000 public works contractors. After that went into effect, we're down to about 6,300. And that means less sharpened pencils, and the bids are going to increase, and the taxpayers will be the ones to pay the price.
Why aren't the members that you represent, why aren't there as many who are able to go out to bid? And so our audience understands, before government or before a town hall is able to, upgrade if they need to become ADA compliant, they can't just go out and do it. They have to put out bids, and whoever can come in at the lowest price is the one that gets it. But you're saying your members aren't able to do so as readily? Why?
Currently, they are able to do public works. However, there are other policies, such as project labor agreements, that are placed on projects over $5 million at the discretion of the municipality or county, that they can decide that a project labor agreement needs to be on the job. And basically what that means is it's union only labor on those types of projects. Therefore, my members won't be able to work on them. As far as, if this legislation were to be passed, it would definitely have a direct impact and not allow my members to be a part of doing public works, because they would not be able to be a part of an apprenticeship program unless they decide to go signatory to a union, which many of them are adamantly against.
And no matter what happens during this lame duck season, it still has to be signed for by the governor. What are your members mainly talking to you about? What are some of their concerns? You know, you represent those people who are just trying to make a living and trying to stay competitive. So what are they telling you?
So, I've been president since last April, and I've gotten to deal with a number of pieces of legislation, not just this one, that affect our industry. Seems like it's often that pieces pop up. So I've talked to a number of my 1,100 members, and the story is always, I'm just trying to do my best to comply with the law. We've done everything that we can do thus far. Just trying to feed my family. I have members that have all the way from 3 employees up to 450 employees. So there's various levels of the shops and who they employ. I have folks that, really take their employees' welfare to heart and want to make sure that they can make a living. And if they can't do public work, these individuals are going to be out of a job. So it's something that's very troubling to them. And as an employer, many of these people have employed their employees for a long time, and it breaks their heart to think about not being able to run their business and provide a living to these folks.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly so much uncertainty in these times, and we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us a little bit about the legislation and some of the ongoing issues. And we hope to have you back on again, and then you can keep us up on what happens moving forward. Samantha, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And we thank you so much for watching this edition of New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I'm Laura Jones, and we will see you next time.